I am here before you with a few important tips for your examination. You had a break of nearly 3 months due to COVID-19 lockdown. Some of you must have literally thrown away your books. Still, I tell you frankly, you need not be in panic. Be very optimistic, hopeful. You have 3 more days time left for your examination. Begin to prepare very seriously. I shall have follow-up papers for you to practice at home. I have just covered all the 13 important units of our textbook with some important textual area, especially from poetry, which you have to prepare, read seriously, either you memorize or by heart, so that you will be able to answer the most important questions whatever you come across, either under 1 mark type or 4 mark type or 6 marks type. Now coming to the first unit, Romeo and Juliet. As usual, we have 2 possible questions. How does Romeo describe Juliet's beauty? The other being, how does Juliet describe Romeo's beauty? I shall not spend more time explaining you about Romeo's description and Juliet's description. I have just prepared some 10 to 12 points for both of these questions. Please pick them up from your WhatsApp and prepare accordingly. Moving on to the second one, The Prophet. It's from this poem that usually if you go through the summary part of the poem, you will be able to answer any question. So I kindly request you all to read the summary part so that however a question is asked, you will be able to answer the question accordingly. I have prepared 14 to 15 important points which you will be able to read repeatedly in the remaining days, remember and be able to produce the same in your examination. You are sure to have one question from this poem usually. And the next poem that we have for your study is When You Are Old. Here from this poem also, obviously we know that how does the poet bring out the difference between permanency of love and transient nature of love. The one man, that being the poet himself, has loved the old lady when she was graceful. He loved her for her pilgrim soul. Many others must have pretended to love her, looking at her physical appearance, her grace when she was young. But now she is pretty old. All that love must have certainly fled away, and all that love must have hid behind crowd of stars. So even from this poem, you are sure to have a question. It's not that difficult. Remember the important points that I have prepared. I shall be forwarding them again in WhatsApp or YouTube. You can pick them and prepare and remember. The next poem that we have is To the Foot from Its Child. Yet again, there's a chance that you may get two different possible questions. One is, explain the hardship faced by the foot, and the other explain the growth of the foot after being condemned to live in the shoe. I have just prepared the answer for both of these questions. I have shown you all the important points that you have to cover, which are valid points in your examination. Please try to remember all these valid points and reproduce these points when you attempt your question from this poem. And the next poem is Heaven If You're Not Here on Earth, written by Kuvempu. Yet again, this is the easiest of all the poems that we have in second PU for your examination. In fact, as we all have understood, Kuvempu has created heaven here down in the earth itself. The earth itself is heaven, as Kuvempu says. We men are gods and the women are heavenly nymphs. He certainly calls upon all our readers to feel, to visualize heavenly beauty here in the earth itself. And this is certainly a very easy question for you to answer. Just simply remember the summary part of the poem, you can answer. And the last poem that we have for our examination is Water. Here from the poem Water, there are three possible questions. The first being, water is a witness to centuries of social injustice. Discuss. Or the same question can be in another way. How does the poem demonstrate the disparity and discrimination in our society, being water, using water as a symbol? I have prepared the answer for this question. Certainly you can answer. Water knows the generations hold strife between the village and the water. Starting from that, right up to water knows the reason why Karam Chedu Suvartamma grew angry at the Kamma landlords. She protested with her pot when they asked her not to pollute the pond water. These are the valid answer points for your question. The next question from this poem is, what are the childhood memories of Challapalli Swaruparani, the poet? Yet again, I have just reduced all your answer points into 6 or 8 valid points. She remembers how they used to welcome their weekly bath, but at the same time, the entire village, dominated by upper caste, bathed luxuriously twice a day. She remembers how the people of lower caste used to walk miles to reach the big canal for water. They used to carry back heavy pots of water with muscles and veins on their neck straining and bursting. She remembers the burning of the thatched roofs of Malapalli for a pot of water. She also remembers how her water would remain thirsty all day without a glass of water. These are the childhood memories of Challapalli Swaruparani. You can certainly remember these valid points. And finally, from this poem, the other important possible question is, water is not a simple thing. It is a mighty movement, explained with reference to the poem Water. So I have just culled out all the points from the text and put them together so that you can prepare your answer. Water is not simply a tool, especially for the lower caste, as they had no right to fetch water all by themselves in public places. The struggle of Mahat, a lower caste, at the Chadar tank is an example for the discrimination. Tears were shed over several generations even for a single drop of water. In fact, blood flowed like streams in the battles fought over for water. The lower caste never managed to win even a small puddle of water in spite of the struggle. Water is not a simple thing. It can give life. It can also take away lives. Water which was refused to satisfy thirst swallowed village after village. In tsunami waves, the poor become victims. It turns villages into deserts. Sometimes it drowns villages in floods. It can ignite many struggles between the village and the water, between one state and another. It can make blood run in streams. It can also sit quietly in a Bisleri bottle. With its new name, mineral water, it has become a multinational market commodity. It is not a simple thing. This much shall be the answer for your question. Water is not a simple thing, it's a mighty movement. Okay, dear students, I should just request you to attempt the maximum number of questions from poetry segment, as that would be easy for you to answer, as we understand that poems are rather simple, not very lengthy, and that surely you may have just one or two questions from all these 6 poetry units. So if you can answer 3 questions from poetry section carrying 4 marks, you would be able to answering questions worth 12 marks. And if you are able to answer one 6-mark question once again from poetry section, that would become 18, 12 plus 6. And if you go through all these points, whatever I have put down for you, you will be able to answer another 4 to 5 questions coming under 1 marks category. So I am sure that whatever PDF file you find in your WhatsApp or YouTube shall help you to answer questions worth 22 to 23 marks. 4 or 5 1-mark questions from the poetry section, 3 4-mark questions from poetry section, and at least 1 6-mark question from poetry section. Okay, I shall just put an end to my details or my briefing about the poetry segment. Let me get you all to the prose segment. I shall not discuss in detail about the prose units. I have just prepared some of the important questions that we often come across in examinations from prose units. Say from the first lesson to dear, we have 3 possible important areas, 3 or 4. The first being write a short note on the Kingdom of Monaco. Just try to pull out some 6 or 8 valid points from your text about the Kingdom of Monaco. Then the second possible question is, why did the king change the death sentence to life imprisonment? We understand pretty well. The criminal was given death sentence. The Kingdom of Monaco neither had a guillotine nor a man to cut the criminal's head off. So they decided to write a letter to the French government. The French replied demanding 16,000 francs for the supply of the machine and a man to cut the criminal's head off. 16,000 francs would be too costly for Monaco, as it would be additional tax on the people of Monaco. The committee assembled, commission was appointed, discussed at length. They decided to write a letter to the King of Italy. Now a prompt reply was expected from Italian brother monarch. Even Italy disclosed that it would charge 12,000 francs for an expert to cut the criminal's head off and the machine. Even 12,000 francs would be too costly for the people of Monaco. The king was not prepared to accept this. The committee discussed once again, commission was appointed. Finally, they thought of appealing this issue to the chief of the army, and they wanted to know if one of the soldiers would be ready to cut the criminal's head off so that death sentence would be complete. But the criminals refused to cut the head off. Later, they were forced to change death sentence into life imprisonment. This is what you are supposed to answer. And the next possible question from this prose unit is, why was the criminal reluctant to go out of the prison? It's a very easy question. And the fourth question from this unit being, how did the criminal lead his life after his release? These are the four possible questions that you please prepare very seriously. Try to memorize at least some of the important valid points so that you can answer. And the next unit is Vandana Shiva. Here the most important questions are, how did women led by Bachni Devi fight against felling of trees? Remember that. Describe the activities of Navadanya form or Earth University. See, I shall just have a request to you all slow learners not to go beyond these two possible areas which are often questioned under 4 marks. These are rather easy, but there may be one or two more questions coming under 4 marks. Probably I feel that they might be rather difficult because this text itself has some philosophical views, maybe put forth by Tagore or a few others. Now moving on to the next unit, the sunny morning. I would say you prepare for these possible questions. Pinch of snuff has made peace between Dona Laura and Don Gonzalo. The second possible question from this is, how did Gonzalo hide his true identity? And the third possible question that is often asked is, what a story did Laura make or spin to conceal her identity? These are the three important areas that you have to read thoroughly, memorize, and be able to reproduce the answer. And the next unit that we have is the gardener. Here again, I have just prepared 2 or 3 important areas which you have to prepare very seriously. How did the owner's life change after the arrival of the old man? The second being, explain how the rivalry between Tammanna and Basavaya moved from visible to invisible domain. And the third being, how did Basavaya try to overcome his humiliation? And the next unit is, books will not disappear, as Boris says. The first question being, what is the observation of Boris about his mother? The second possible question is, what are Boris' views about poetry? The third being, why does Boris say that books will not disappear? These are often asked. Questions are usually set on these areas. And the next important unit that I am going to take up now is, explain why bowing is a complicated process in Japan. And the second possible question that you may come across from this unit is, explain the condition of traffic in Brazil. And the next unit that we have here is about the author. Here again, I have just prepared 3 possible questions. Roof is an intelligent manipulator. Justify. And the second being, trace the changes in the attitude of the villagers before the second election. And the third possible question, explained the dilemma that Roof had on the day of election. And the last unit in prose is cycling. And here again, there are three important areas. The first is, in what different ways does the cycle empower rural women? The second, what are the economic implications of cycling? And the third, how does Sheila Rani Chunkat promote the empowerment of women? Dear students, whatever I have shown you are just suggestive. Please focus more and more on these important areas shown in textual part, the prose part as well as poetry part. I am very sure that you will be able to answer questions for 50 marks, 12 1-mark questions, 8 4-mark questions and 1 6 marks question. Thank you.